Thank you to our three panelists for speaking with us today as part of the Winter Soldier, Iraq and Afghanistan panel on the global war on terror. We have a number of questions that have come in from our interested audience members, so I will go through a few of them. This question comes from Iraq veteran Against the War member from Chicago, James Redden, who asks, Anthony Arnove, what about the reduction of violence since the surge? To rephrase the question, what about what Petraeus says?
Sure. Do you want to go one at a time?
This question is just for you.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is a very important topic. And again, to follow from the comments Amy just made, one in which the media discourse has been so abysmal. You know, Amy mentioned, of course, the responsibility, the criminal responsibility that the U.S. media had in the lead up to and the invasion of Iraq. You know, sometimes people say this was Bush's war, and I always get very frustrated when I hear that, because in reality, this was the New York Times' war, this was the Washington Post's war, this was the liberal establishment's war. The list of people responsible, and of course the media responsible, is significant. And General Petraeus and the surge, I mean, General Petraeus should be called Lord Petraeus for the way he's treated in the U.S. media, has been completely unquestioned in this myth of the surge. First of all, one of the reasons that there has been a decline of the increase of the rate of violence in Iraq. The level of violence in Iraq is still horrific. Thousands upon thousands of civilians dying every month. The malnutrition, the displacement, the refugee crisis, all continuing. But there's been a leveling off of the rate of increase of violence. Although in February of this year, we saw a huge spike once again. But really, that can be attributed to three factors, none of which have anything to do with the additional 30,000 troops that were dispatched to Iraq in January of last year as part of the so-called Bush surge. The first reason is that Muqtada al-Sadr unilaterally entered into a ceasefire. And so a strategic decision taken by Muqtada al-Sadr that had nothing to do with the surge led to a decrease of violence. Secondly, there was a decision by a number of Sunni militias that rather than continuing to fight a three-front war, as they were doing, that they would enter into a temporary strategic alliance with the United States. That the Sunni militias that a few months ago we were being told were the Sunni insurgency, the terrorists, Al-Qaeda, the Ba'athist dead-enders, and who are now, we're being told, are Iraqi volunteers, concerned citizens, awakening councils, all of these euphemisms to cover the fact that we're not some disinterested observer trying to separate the warring parties. We're arming both sides of a civil war. We're a party to the civil war, and we're now arming Sunni militias to counterbalance the weight of Shia militias that we had been sponsoring. Some of those Sunni militias have entered into a temporary, short-term strategic alliance with the United States in order to settle other political scores before they return to direct confrontation with the U.S. occupation. That's a temporary situation. The third thing, though, and really this is the most tragic element, and I'll end on this, is that the rate of killing and the rate of displacement and the rate of ethnic cleansing in Iraq has been so great that there are fewer people left to kill. There are fewer people left to ethnically cleanse. There are fewer people left to terrorize. It's what economists call a point of diminishing returns. It is the most tragic example of that you can possibly imagine. That's not a success. That is devastation and destruction and continued horror for the people of Iraq.
And a Military Family Speak Out member from New Orleans, Al Bernard, asks, how do we take the media from the corporations? It seems like an impossible goal to reach. Amy, please go into more detail about specific actions that we can take.
Well, for one thing, I think we have to shore up independent media. That is very important. Don't take for granted these precious public spaces that we really do control and that you can participate in all over the country. I mean, just the fact that today, here you are, a couple of hundred people in this room, very important testimony being shared all weekend. It's now accessible to millions of people all over the globe. Why? Because, well, in the corner over there, Pacifica Radio is broadcasting, the oldest independent media network in this country. Free Speech TV is broadcasting these hearings at channel 9415 on Dish Network. Democracy Now! And democracynow.org was broadcasting from here. IVAW.org is streaming this live. And public access TV, community radio, public television, all of these independent media outlets, we are really working together in a quilt around this country for a very, very powerful effect. I think the fact that Democracy Now! Is now on almost 700 stations, it's about the hunger for independent voices. People are looking elsewhere. This is a real opportunity, not only to look for other information, but to make your own media, to take back these public spaces and have the conversations in your communities where you bring in the experts, the people in this room and in your communities. And then, of course, though, there is challenging the corporate media. There is the challenging the concentration when the FCC is trying to rewrite the rules to allow media mogul to own the newspaper, radio, and television in town. You'd be surprised, but people across the political spectrum have a visceral reaction against this. So you'll get conservative Republicans in Congress together with progressives saying no, and they're joining forces and they're beating back. First it was Michael Powell's FCC, the son of Colin Powell, and now Kevin Martin, the new FCC chair, as he tried to push through the same kind of media concentration. Be aware. Free Press is a great organization where you can get information. They're having a big conference in Minneapolis at the beginning of June. But it's very, very important that we be media activists, media literate, because it's the place we have these conversations. It's the place where, as Noam Chomsky says, they manufacture consent for war, and that's got to be challenged.